Thanks very much. Thank you to Emily. Thank you to Angie and the entire team for support in doing this, and the guidance in terms of crafting this to make sure that it's going to be valuable for all of you. And I wanted to just first of all say thanks for being here. And this is intended to be interactive and discussion, so I would love to get your input, and we can have dialogue and debate and whatever. That's the whole point of this. So the whole purpose of this is a cohort that's new to ATD, first one we've done, and it's an introductory cohort at an introductory level, just to kind of break the surface about coaching, give you some concepts, some ideas, and then we get into more detail in the following cohorts. And as Emily said, this was something I thought about to bring to ATD because of I think the need in the industry in terms of advancing the knowledge of this, and I see a lot of need in organizations for this. As far as just some housekeeping, if you want to chime in, by all means, take yourself off mute and you can talk. Looks like a lot of you are already on video, and we can just talk and have a conversation. If you want to put something in the chat box, you can do that, or just hit yes on the participant screen, and you can just chime in with a yes. But I'm sure that you'll be willing to just give me a thumbs up or just say something as we go through this, because I want to get your input on a lot of areas. A little bit about me, as Emily said, I've been involved with ATD Austin for actually several years, and joined a couple years ago officially. My main work is in helping organizations build high-performing teams and individuals to grow in leadership and also in their career. Most of my career started at about 20 plus years in business development and client management, mostly in the healthcare and technology industries. But I took a turn purposely about 10 years ago when I realized that a lot of organizations didn't have the right people in the right seats on the bus, and the impact it was having on organizations, and that there was an opportunity to develop people, that people were really one of the key factors in an organization's success. So I through one way and another, I got into executive recruiting, and still do that as part of what I do. And that led me into the people side and talent management and executive development. So that's kind of where we're at today. And so really I'm pretty unique in that I combine all those areas of talent acquisition and development and coaching to work with organizations and people. And as Emily mentioned, I've started my own consulting firm, 7 years ago or so ago, 8 years ago, that was founded really by myself to help provide both career coaching and executive leadership coaching for people, and also have expanded to do a lot of the talent management work with companies. And I'm also serving on the staff of HIMSS, which is the largest healthcare information management professional organization, much like ATD, and I am on their professional development team. I guess a little bit of questions for you all in terms of your background and what you've been exposed to. Have any of you done some coaching of others in the past? Maybe, let me know about that, or maybe give me a thumbs up if you've coached in the past. Have you coached others or other teams before? Looks like a couple of you have. Okay, good. And if anybody would like to just jump in and just, yeah, this could be a great time if anyone wants to come on audio or even use the chat. But I wanted to make a comment. Yeah. It's funny, like I have a title of coach for one of my positions, but I have learned that there are so many different ways to define coaching. And so I have done it in a way that I understand makes sense to me, but I'm going to be curious to hear how you define it later. Good point. Absolutely. And then we're going to talk about the different kinds of coaching out there. Absolutely. Would anybody like to just share real briefly what brought them to this webinar? I know we talked to a few of you as you were signing in, but anybody want to just share what intrigued you about coming today? Maybe that'll help us in our conversation.
Hi, I'll speak up.
Oh, looks like we're getting some. Yes, Bridget. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, how are you? Sorry to be so late, but I was invited to this. I used to be a member of ATD years ago, and I just spent 8 years. I've been in corporate America for about 17 years in high tech I have a background in globalization and localization, and I work in learning and development and program management. And my previous role was to kind of work with our folks around the world, making sure that our localization needs or their localization needs were being met in our learning and development programs. So I found out about coaching through a friend of mine. I actually just started my own business. So in the work world, I focus on performance coaching, of course, very different than individual coaching and group coaching. And I'm just really, I joined this meeting because I want to see what everybody else is up to. I feel so disconnected from the world, but to make new friends and cohorts in this field and kind of keep my finger on the pulse.
Excellent. Glad to have you. That's great. Anybody else want to chime in? Well, I appreciate your candor, and that's exactly what we're about, is to create an environment where people can share. I know we had a comment here that somebody said they're trying to help colleagues understand sometimes that coaching isn't the answer to problems, is the answer to the problems, not training. Hoping the session will put some tools in my toolbox when they say, okay, then now what? Absolutely, and we're going to talk about a great example of that. Fabulous. So let me continue here, and if we don't cover everything today, if we have good discussion, when we get to the second cohort, we can kind of do a little bit of a continuation of some of these themes. What I wanted to talk about today was the real purpose of the cohort is to, and I'll talk about that, but the purpose is to really do exactly what Bridget said, is to bring people together to expand further the discussion of coaching. We're going to understand what coaching is and why is it critical. We'll talk about just a few foundational concepts to be an effective coach and next steps and a call to action for you. And we hope that you will continue with this cohort as planned. The purpose of the cohort is really to help executives that are in an executive or management role of some kind. Could be anything from sales to product leadership to talent, you name it. And also their HR leaders and talent leaders to come together, learn more about the value of coaching and coaching details, how to leverage it in your organization or with clients, and also to improve your own individual performance by growing and learning how to develop others. I think as you develop others, you yourself grow and you learn some of the areas that you want to do better in, and it really is a kind of a reciprocal thing. So we would love to help you all become better as well. We want to enhance coaching skills and a place where leaders can grow and grow within their organization. I think as leaders learn more and become better coaches of their teams, they become better in their organization to affect change and to help the organization grow. We want to also increase your influence in the organization, and as Emily mentioned, to really expand the reach of what ATD is doing. This is a new topic for this chapter, and we hope that you'll help us expand what ATD is doing in the reach in the Austin metro area through topics like this. There's 3 cohorts that we have planned today. Now, I'm going to assume that we're going to get a lot of interest in ideas, so we may expand to some other topics. But right now we have 3 coming up. Well, 2. One is today. This is just an introduction. Then we have the June 25th one, which is really going to be focused on using diagnostic assessments, personality assessments as a foundation for coaching. How do we use those and how can they be leveraged? Then start to talk a little bit about having each of you do a little bit of a practicum and kind of set the stage for that so that you could find an individual in your organization that you would like to start the coaching discussions with as we go through this in the next few cohorts. And then get a little bit, roll up the sleeves and get a little bit further into it in the August session when we talk more in depth about specific strategies, how to handle issues, what we call non-directive coaching, and also delve more into the practicum and have each of you talk a little bit about your experience. You know, how did it go? What are some of the challenges? And again, this is meant to be a very interactive group, and we will continue this further with other topics too if there's a lot of interest down the rest of the year. I wanted to start with a little quote that I really like from Zig Ziglar. Anybody ever heard of Zig Ziglar? Yeah, of course. Yeah, he's a legend. He has got lots of quotes, but I really like this relative to us and what we're doing today. He said, you don't have to be great to start. but you have to start to be great. And what that really means is if you're going to endeavor to change an individual or an organization or take a step to improve performance or a team or whatever, you really have to get started and make that commitment to do it. And it's not just you as a coach, but it's also the coachee and having them, he or she, make a commitment to the process and to bettering themselves. And I've seen many people that I've coached, and I coach a lot of people, different levels of organizations, and several have a tough time making that commitment to really say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to commit to the homework and things I need to do. It's a tough thing. So that taking that step is the biggest piece of getting started in a new direction. Any thoughts on that or comments? Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, and maybe you could all chime in with your thoughts in the chat or whatever about what you think coaching really is to you. Anybody have any thoughts on what you think coaching is really? What's in your mind when you think of coaching? Well, let me start with what it generally is not. A lot of times, and I'm sure you've seen this, it becomes a punitive measure. So the leadership or HR, somebody might say, well, he or she isn't performing the way we want, or has a personality conflict with somebody or some kind of situation. So they resort to coaching as sort of a negative connotation, when really that's the worst way to view coaching. And the person feels very defensive, like, oh, they've assigned me a coach, and now I have to be better. Angie mentioned focusing conversations to develop skills towards achieving one goal. Absolutely. Empowering people, absolutely agree with that. Helping them to take action. And so it's really not punitive. It's more, and it's not done to try and salvage an employee. It should never be in that kind of light. And I believe that if it gets to that point, it's really a problem of the person for that role wasn't selected correctly and they're not the right fit. Maybe better somewhere else, but not for that role. And so you're trying to coach somebody that's not the right fit. And a lot of times it's really falls on HR. So the leadership of a particular group in the organization might have an issue or this person's not performing well. And so they turn to HR as the resource, when really what we are doing in this cohort is talking about the leader as the coach, not HR just being coach, and how that can help with their team, whether they're a sales leader, a marketing leader, whatever that is. So really coaching in essence really is developing and elevating the other person, helping them see the light, helping them go on their journey. It's really about empowerment, and there's a lot of debate between strength-based coaching and focusing on the areas of improvement. I think it's a balance, but it's really about empowering people to be better and giving them the tools and guiding them. And it's really what is really the makeup of a good leader is a good coach. It's also about deepening their learning and affecting, what we really want to do is affect behavioral change. That behavior could be how they view something, how they approach something, any of those type of things. And we want the person the reason we coach is to make him or her highly impactful in the organization, the team, the subgroup, wherever they are. That's really why we do it. And it should be more of a positive growth to say, this person really has opportunity to grow. How can we help them get there? And not be negative. Any thoughts on that? Anybody have any, their views from things they've seen in their different career with that?
Yeah, this is Missy Bledsoe, and I am camera ready, and I am not going to show my face, but I will talk. When you were talking about that, I'm on the L&D team for the Whole Foods Market global office, and I am not a team leader, but I am asked a lot to work with teams in team building when their teams are having issues or trust issues, whatever. So that was why I was interested in this. But what I was thinking of is I also taught school for 20 years, and I was a coach for volleyball and track, and I coached adults as well. And when you were describing the differences, I thought that was perfect sense, because I've never actually thought of it in the differences of what it is not and what it is. And what it is not is what normally people do. And I think of coaching people and kids and whomever, and I think about how you take their skills, or you try to figure out, you know, what they're really, really good at, and you help them, you know, just help them along that journey, and give them confidence, and help them and push them a little bit, and help them do the things that they do well, you know, like on a track team, for instance, you know, somebody that can do the high jump well, or do, you know, or is a good runner, you're going to put them in the places where they do the very best that they can. And I think that sometimes we're missing the boat when we're talking about business. So I'm going to remember my analogy.
Great, spot on. I think that's, and it's good to see that you're, you know, seeing that even in your own organization, of how it's being used today. And maybe, you know, maybe through this, we can give you thoughts and ideas of how you can change that culture, because it really is a culture in the organization of how coaching is used and viewed. And, you know, there are some good ones out there that really use it effectively, but a lot that don't. As you mentioned, there's a lot out there that don't. You know, thank you for the input. Anybody else have any thoughts on what coaching is or is not, or what they've seen?
Listening. Hi, my name is Kate Baldacchi.
Hi, Kate.
Hi, I'm very happy to be here. Emily brought me on board, and I'm actually not in HR. I'm actually in sales, and so I'm wanting to understand the process of the hiring process and talent to hopefully make me a better candidate for future jobs. But listening to this conversation, and then also referencing the Harvard Business Review article, it's really making me think about how much the responsibility of traditional coaching and feeling like, you know, the punitive measure. It's like the employee thinking that I did something wrong, and not even taking into account the statistics showing how ineffective most managers, leaders are at coaching. So there's that psychological, you know, and I'm generalizing, but for people feeling like, what did I do wrong? And then if that coaching doesn't work out, they're taking it onto themselves and not even considering that maybe it was the manager's approach to coaching, and how that can really impact how they view themselves as an employee. So just a thought.
Without question. Yeah, without question. Yeah. And again, it's a culture change of the way it's viewed. And I hope that through doing things like this, we can help that view. That's part of why we want to do this. And, you know, you mentioned sales, and I'm going to talk about that, but sales is a tremendous area where coaching becomes so highly effective, and it can be done so wrong, as you mentioned. And I've been in sales most of my career, and I've seen companies where they take the highest performing sales rep and make them a manager or a sales leader over a team. And that doesn't mean they're going to be a good coach or developer. They're just going to lead with a stick a lot of times. And that's not good. And we'll talk about that, but absolutely, especially in sales.
I learned about the Peter Principle a couple of years ago.
Yes, absolutely right. Yes. Well, thanks for the input on that. It's great to hear your different experiences. You just mentioned about sales coaching. Let's talk about some of the areas. You all may know this, but just to share, where do we see coaching in the environments today? You mentioned sports. Absolutely. That's kind of a way, you know, sports coaching is certainly performance sports coaching. These are just a few as ideas, but, you know, certainly when we talk about employee development at different levels, could be at a lower level, mid-level. We get into the executive coaching, helping team leaders be better leaders of their teams. Career coaching in itself is in a whole process, and some of the ways that you ask questions and the way you develop thoughts for your coachee is a little different than executive coaching, the process and how you approach them. Life coaching, that's a big area. That still involves the concepts we talk about. Sales coaching, as you mentioned. Business coaching, there are a lot of coaches that help business owners perform better, not so much on their behavioral style, but more in terms of business strategy. And there's a lot of companies that do that kind of stuff. So those are just some interesting, you know, ideas. One of the notes I saw, somebody said relationship coaching as well. Absolutely. That's a yes. Yeah. And I think relationship coaching fits into some of these areas we mentioned. For any of these to be effective, you have to build the relationships effectively, which I think is an area that falls down. So as an example, and we'll get into this more in the second cohort, the effective way to help somebody be better leaders is to understand their blind spots and where their relationships break down because of their personality blind spots they're not aware of. And those, going back to your point, Hagazi, is where relationships break down, and coaching them becomes not just about performance, but about building relationships and working better with people. So great comment. Why are we doing this? I mean, why develop coaching as a culture in your organization? Well, I really refer to it as high potentials. And when we talk about coaching, the framework is more of a company, but in the essence of it, why does an organization want to develop its high potentials? And this is a cultural shift where they may not have done this before. But if you look at some statistics, and while it's not recent, it still stands and holds true. From a 2009 publication from Coaching Psychology, about 35–36% increase in employee performance through strength-based coaching, almost a 30% or a third decrease in performance from focusing on the weaknesses. So when you have not effective coaching and you're just beating people up for not doing what you want, which a lot of organizations unfortunately do, you're seeing a reduction in performance versus an increase. 25% of identified high potentials are planning to leave within a year. And I think that still holds true, maybe not so much because of the virus today, but in general, I think most people leave, what do they say? They leave their job because of their boss, not because of so much other things. And I've seen that in the search recruitment arena for years, people leaving because of the wrong leadership. They aren't appreciated, they aren't being developed, and they have a lot more to bring. It happens all the time. A rough cost of about $350 billion of disengaged employees and non-developed employees. That's an enormous cost when you think about the cost to an organization for not developing their high potentials and not coaching and bringing people forward. The other reasons, and these are certainly just a few, is that if you need a culture like this in order to effectively put succession planning in place in an organization. If you don't have strength in the bench and you haven't brought people up to the level, then you can't put a plan in place because you don't have the people ready to take on those other roles. So that helps with succession planning. It also helps with turnover. A lot of organizations wonder why good people are leaving. Well, they weren't being developed. They weren't being openly talked to and communicated with, all those areas. Anybody have any thoughts there? All right. Let me give you some just a quick foundation. I know it's a little more higher level, but I just wanted to set the stage for what, from a culture perspective and from a coaching, what is required in an organization as sort of the umbrella before coaching can be effective. And you might say, well, coaching is really about the individual and their skills with somebody else. Yeah, that's true. But in an organization, we call, and I've used this framework with a colleague of mine who we do consulting with, and it's really performance consulting, and it's called the performance pyramid. And it's really about an organization needing to have these three areas really working well before coaching and development can work well. First is the organization has to have a clear direction of where it's going, where it's headed, the mission, having the right people in the right places. And we talked about, if you have somebody in the wrong seat on the bus, it's hard for them to be coached if it's the wrong fit, or you hired the wrong personality, or it's not a good fit with the culture. And then you also have to have everybody on the bus going together with the leadership and having everybody in alignment. And if those three pyramid corners are not being met, it doesn't effectively lead to effective development of your people. And inside of all that is the technology, processes, systems, all the stuff that companies have. But without those three pieces of the pyramid, the other stuff doesn't work. It's ineffective. All of that leads to building a high caliber culture. And with that high caliber culture is what drives the idea of performance, drives the leadership saying, we are a development leadership. We want to develop our people. We understand the value of building performance, all those things. I'm going to skip this and just keep moving. I want to kind of take it a level below that. And once that framework is in place, this is a great model, I think, to keep in mind about how an organization approaches leadership development in general. What's sort of the process they can follow for for the entire organization. And it really starts with what we call ACE, which is really 3 different areas. And it's kind of conceptual, but it really makes sense if you think about it. The organization or the person in the organization, first of all, there has to be an awareness by him or her that there's need for change, that they want to change, and that the leadership or the person who's the coach is aware that there's a need for or a desire to improve. So that's the awareness. And that's really where the assessments happen. That's where the discussions happen about what are you trying to accomplish, and let's take a look at your current style and personality and behavior, and really assess who you are. And then we move into the commitment phase. And this is what I talked about before, where a lot of people who are being coached aren't ready to commit to the process. And it's just subconscious. They're just not ready. But that commitment from both the organization to develop as well as the individual to develop really has to happen for it to move on. And then we move into really looking at the choices, the options the individual has, the development plan, putting a development plan in place with them. And we'll get into more detail on that in later sessions, but really having a good development plan in place for the individual that you and she or you and he can follow. And then establishing goals as part of that. What are we going to accomplish in the next 30 days, 60 days, whatever that is. And then really making sure that there's alignment with the coach, with you as the coach, the coachee, and also their leadership. Because if leadership isn't in step with this and not supportive, it's very difficult to get effective input. And a lot of times I like to use a 360 assessment to get the leaders in view of the individual and to see where there are some gaps and where there could be development. And then action and delivery of the goals, the execution phase, and actually getting them to commit to making change and measuring that change. And then looking back on those goals on a continual basis to see how did we do? How do we need to change? How did that go? That's all part of that ACE model called awareness, choice, execution. Any questions on that? All right. So I have a quiz for you all, and this is kind of a interesting quiz to see who can guess this. But there are 3 photos here, and we're talking about coaching styles, the different general styles of coaching. Anybody have a clue what the photo on the left is with the coach and the football player? What kind of coaching style might that represent? Anybody have an idea? Yes. All right. Sticks, exactly. Pushing against, anger, beating up, absolutely. How about the one in the center with the numbers? Anybody have any ideas? That's more about metrics. There's a lot of managers and leaders who are so focused on metrics that they drive everything based on numbers and not the whole picture. And then what's on the very top right with the carrots? Anybody know? Yes, that's right. Yes, Shannon. Incentives, rewards, leading with the carrot, not the stick. And that's where a lot of leaders don't go to, is inspiring based on what that person wants to achieve. How many of you have read the Harvard article that I sent? Anybody? Did you all read that? Good, Kate. Anybody else? Okay, Shane, good. Shannon, good. Shane, good. If you remember, the major focus of it was to really talk about the style of coaching, and this kind of takes a step down to say we want to be more of what we call non-directive, which is the idea of pulling out the ideas and the energy of the individual, getting the commitment and their actions and their moving things forward, helping them move things forward without you as a coach having to push and put in a lot of effort and energy into it. It's that balance. And so we move over from from directive to non-directive, and that's the area you really want to be in. And I know some of you may have not gotten the link because a couple people signed up late, but I will send it out to you all again. The situational is really where the ideal is. So most coaches start as non-directive, and we work to get them to that level, but the utopia is situational, where you're balancing that energy of pull from the coachee and the amount you put in. It's really a balance, and obtaining that balance takes a lot of exposure and experience. And that's what you all want to strive for, is putting in less effort and getting them to guide asking them what the next step is, asking them where they want to take things. It's hard to do because the coach wants to sometimes tell where to go and tell and explain, and it's really the other way around. It's a hard thing to get used to. Any other comments on the article itself? There was a lot in there. Any other thoughts on what you read in there that you want to share? There's a couple of key little, I think, themes in there. What do you all think? Anything else?
Stefan, I find it interesting.
Yes.
This is Kate again, and looking through my sales lens and taking a course on spin sales was pretty, I rejected that philosophy of sales. I did not like it at all, but that's my personal opinion. But I find it fascinating how managers said that they resist the coaching leadership technique because they're giving the excuse of I'm too busy, this isn't the best use of my time, my people aren't coachable. And I find that kind of interesting, mainly because those managers will not tolerate that response from their sales staff when they say our customers don't have enough time, that their product doesn't work for them. So they're giving the excuses that they would not accept from their teams. So I just find that.
Yep. Well, and I will say, I think that's a great point, Kate. And I'll say what I've seen, we talked about the culture and getting this as part of the culture. A lot of sales organizations and others don't value what we're talking about as critical. They see it as kind of fluffy and that's nice, but I got revenue numbers to meet. Well, I believe you can't adequately meet those revenue numbers and have your team successful if you don't implement some of these things. And so managers who say, I haven't got the time for it or whatever, I think it's a very misfortunate view, but thank you for that. That's spot on. Moving on, and I know we're running. Yes, somebody else have a comment? All right, well, good. I appreciate the comment, Kate. The other model that they talked about, and you can read the article afterwards, was the whole idea of how do you get to that situational coaching and non-directive coaching, and it's really through what they call the GROW model. And this really is at a high level what we talk about in coaching and people is the idea of helping them understand where they're headed, setting a realistic reality for them of what is it they want to accomplish? How are they going to do that? What are the different ways they can accomplish it, which is the opportunity. So really that's the first stages with somebody is helping, questioning, asking, getting them to see things in the new light. What are the different choices? I want to increase my revenue by X dollars, or I want to move into a leadership position. Great, that's your goal. What's the reality of, what's the steps to get there? What are the choices you can make to move in that direction? I could do this. I could try this. And then the fourth and final is really the will. And that's where that's the hardest part to get to, which is where that person has the commitment and the desire to affect that change. And sometimes as a coach, you have to really get them to that point, to inspire them, to help them see that. Does that make sense? Yeah, and there was also a great excerpt in there about Microsoft when Satya Nadella took over and how he changed the culture. I suggest going back and reading that. It's really interesting. Wanted to leave you with a couple of mindset foundations that really are important for coaching before you get into the details, nitty-gritty of questioning and all the things you get into. Really, to be effective, you as a coach have to understand yourself and your own personality. And if you don't have a good grasp of that, it's going to be very tough to coach others. One of the things that is helpful is to develop what they call a positive coaching mindset. And this came out of a great book called The Power of Positive Coaching. And I really like this model, and I think it's very relevant. So you have to, as a coach, be aware of your own thoughts. How do you view the glass half empty, half full? Your emotions. What triggers you? What are you going to be more tied to with the person you're working with? What are you going to latch onto with them? What is your purpose? Why are you a leader? Or why are you a manager? Or why are you looking to develop people? What's the purpose of why you're doing it? And all along through that is really to understand what am I doing as a leader or coach to better understand myself and my impact on others. And I think it's that emotional intelligence, that awareness of yourself. And as a leader or coach, a lot of leaders don't have that EQ, it's very hard to affect change. And so there's, I think, a lot of time that needs to be spent as a coach to first take a step back with yourself and do some analysis of yourself, to take some assessments, to figure out how you are going to view things. For example, if you have a person who is not meeting their sales goals, how do you view that? So she is not meeting her sales goals. Is that the way I want to view this? Or on the reverse side, what strengths and attributes does she have that we can exploit that's not being exploited to help her or him be more successful? So how does your mindset view how you're going to coach and approach people? And there's an assessment that I would like to have the cohort take if we can. We're still working that out, but it's going to give you as a coach an understanding of your own thoughts, mindset. How are you set up today as a coach? And that's something I would recommend that we all do to understand more about ourselves. So without that mindset, I think the coaching does not become very successful. The mindset really allows you to have positive coaching habits, and these are things that you need to be aware of as you coach and check yourself and see if you're doing these things. Most importantly is to gain commitment from the team or the individual, and gaining alignment and explaining expectations. As a leader of a team, where are we headed? Our goal as a team is to do this by the end of January. What are the expectations, and make sure everybody's on alignment? Asking questions of individuals and the team to gain engagement, getting them on the bus together. A lot of leaders and coaches don't really adequately engage their team. Getting the team involved in the process, taking ownership of different aspects. Maybe this person's going to take control of the project plan. This person's going to do this. And without ownership, performance can't really accelerate. Measuring results. So you have to, as a coach and leader, decide what are the metrics and scorecards you're going to measure your team or individual against. If it's an example, like Kate said, a sales organization, what am I measuring that sales person against? Is it just revenue? Is it new business acquisition? Is it, what is that? And then the idea of appreciating your team and your individuals that you lead. I think that's a key piece that's missing. And I think a lot of leaders don't take the time to build the relationship and engage in what the person really is all about. And that break in that relationship causes, I think, a lot of turnover and a lot of challenges with teams. So think about these things as you continue on your coaching journey, because ask yourself, am I doing these things? And if not, how can I do this better? Anybody have any questions or thoughts on that as a framework? Okay. As we wrap up, the call to action for all of you is a couple of things I would ask. One is think about kind of what we talked about, but certainly we would want you to continue with the cohort. Really, why should you be in the cohort? What's in it for you? Well, first of all, we want to enhance your coaching skills and positive impact on your team, your organization, whatever. Expand your influence in the organization, whether you're in L&D, like Bridget mentioned, or you're in a sales function, individual contributor, however that is, you want to expand your influence. And you want to increase retention of your team, especially in today's times, because having good talent, it's a lot more expensive to find new talent than to develop your B players into your A players. And I can tell you that as a recruiter, it's an arduous effort. Network and build connections with others, and that's why we want to form this group. So this is intended to be a group where we can all be together going forward. And we want to create a group. Now we're working through whether that's going to be on Slack or how we're going to do that, but a way for us to communicate regularly, share articles, ideas, build our networks together. It's really a cohort. That's the idea of this. We have 2 upcoming cohorts, as I mentioned, June 25th, where we're going to talk about assessments and get into some of that, and then start talking about the practicum, and then August 27th, where we're going to get more into more depth about coaching and strategies and things like that. They'll be sending out, you'll get a survey that'll be coming out to just give your feedback on this session, but also to share your ideas of what you'd like to see in future sessions, because we want to take your input. If you have some ideas of what we could cover, absolutely love to do it. And if you want to even share some ideas on the next cohort, let's do it. It's all for sharing. So please respond to the survey and indicate if you're going to join the cohort. Just a reminder that to be in the cohort, you do have to be an ATD member. But the good thing is, if you're not already, if you wait a couple of days and join, there's a 90-day free trial. So that'll take you through the cohorts. But I think such a nominal fee to become a member, and you get so much out of it. I would just recommend becoming an ATD member if you haven't already, or renew if you haven't renewed. I think that's about all I had. Do you all have, oh, let me give you my contact information, most importantly, in case you have other questions. If you want to take something offline, or do you have any questions, let me know.
Hey, Stefan.
Yes, Emily.
Real quick, I am not seeing different slides. I don't know if it's just something on my end.
Are you all seeing this slide?
I see the question. I'm good.
Hey, click your click the little Zoom icon, and there is probably another window that you're just not seeing at the bottom of your screen.
Huh. Well, I see the positive coaching mindset slide. So you all see a different slide?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, great. It's you that matters. I've already seen it. So just wanted to make sure everyone else is seeing the right slide.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that. I was hoping I didn't have slides that were, you're looking at 5 slides back. Please reach out to me with any questions. That's my number, my email. Happy to talk to you further about any challenges you're having or whatever. And we hope you'll join the cohort going forward, and we expect to expand with some other people as well. Any questions I can answer, or any thoughts you've had, or anything like that?
If I may, I just wanted to say thank you to you and Emily for all of your hard work. My name is Angie Hubert, and I know several folks that joined based on a random reach out or random message from me on LinkedIn. So I just want to say thank you to those folks that expressed interest. We really are wanting to create opportunities for talent development and L&D professionals in the Austin area, and get new voices, and add diversity, and continue to create experiences like this for us all to connect and engage. And so that was really where that random message from me came from. I just wanted to say thank you to folks. And we have quite a few people who maybe hadn't engaged with ATD Austin before who joined. So thank you so much to all of you. And I hope you continue. Hi, I hope we continue with the cohort. I'm personally really looking forward to learning more. And again, thank you for your expertise, Stefan.
Well, thank you all for attending. Thank you, Emily and Angie. And please, again, don't hesitate to reach out, and we'll be back in touch with more details on the cohort, and hopefully see you all at the end of June, and have a really great time. So thank you all for attending.
Thank you, Angie. Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
So how'd it go?
Hey, Hector. Good.
No, I know I've been here for the whole thing. But how do you feel about it?
Oh, I feel good. Yeah. I was, I didn't really, oh, hold on, we're still recording. Let me stop the recording.